Welcome back to DemDMs. My name's Panda Ghost.
I'm Fox Ghost.
And I'm Matt.
And today, we're going to be fixing 5e again. This time, feats. So if everyone's ready, let's slide on in.
Feats, and not the thing that is connected to your leg.
Oh my god. Alright, I think starting off, we should talk about the elephant in the room. The new UA that's come out for 1 DnD, right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't really read it yet. I personally don't plan on reading it. It's UA, so it's bound to change. And I don't generally read UAs. That being said, we might discuss a little bit about maybe some feat prerequisite here.
Yeah, I think it's a little early days to be getting into any of that stuff.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, if you guys want to have us give our thoughts on that, let us know down in the comments. But for right now, we're kind of just waiting till there's a more solid ground to stand on.
Right. So let's talk about the rules that are there, and which is feat variant rule. First off, get rid of that. We always play with feats anyway.
Yeah, no one. I can't think of anyone that's like, oh, I play with just ASIs, right?
Yeah,
almost everyone that I know doesn't take it as a variant rule. It is how it is done, right?
Your character would be so boring without feats. Like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because without feats, you're basically just like any other character, right? Like any other, like, yeah, you could choose your subclass, but other than that, you're just like any other champion fighter,
Sure.
just like any other hunter ranger,
Swashbuckler rogue or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with this idea of taking out the variant rules, this might change how fighters in our concept of how this works. It might change that there is a variant fighter, right? There is only the one option. Or does anyone know if people actually use the base fighter, human rather, which is the, bump up every ability score by 1, or do they all seem to take the variant?
I don't know of anyone that uses the base human of +1 to every stat.
Yeah, I think generally people are taking the variant human, which means that that probably can go away too. If we're taking away that feats are a variant rule and are just inherent in the system, it would I mean, they statted out in the book for 5 or 6 pages of the PHP. It's not a variant rule. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Exactly.
I don't know. I still like having fighters, or got me saying fighters now. Humans having getting a feat instead of the 6, because the 6 is it's 6 ASI bumps, but it's in everything. It doesn't do you any good. It's craptastic, right?
Yeah,
I still like having a feat as a human. Will 2 feats at first? So I guess we should move back and explain how we would give feats, and that would be every 6 levels.
6 levels.
Yeah. So basically, the idea is that we want to split ASIs from feats entirely. Obviously, as there's no more longer going to be a variant rule, they don't need to be connected in terms of leveling.
Correct.
So the idea would be everybody gets one at first.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that actually was commonplace in 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
And then every, at 6th level, 12th level, and 18th level, you get a feat that you can select. Obviously, fighters who get bonus feats at various levels, those would probably still happen.
Well, so fighters get bonus ASIs, not bonus feats.
True, so maybe it's a difference of taking away the bonus ASI and making those bonus feats.
Or that's a matter of
mixture.
They have the ability to choose ASIs or feats.
Right. That would be the one area that I'd still be okay with them choosing what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the rogue has one that doesn't fall in the regular progression of every 4 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get one at 6 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the other thing, would be decoupling ASIs from class level and making it a part of player total level.
Yeah, everybody gets the same progression, no matter what, if they're multi-classed or if they're, you know, different classes.
Right, because if you multi-class, you can start losing out on ASIs.
Right.
Sure.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, I mean, with this kind of split between ASI and feats, does it become a question of, do you have to look at the feats that are giving a partial ASI and see if there's another way to rework those where maybe you can get rid of the ASI because it's no longer. I feel like, you know, a lot of what we discuss in this is kind of a variance or similar to 3.5, and 3.5's feats did not give you
Correct.
any bump to your ability score. It would give you maybe a couple pluses to skills or something of this nature, but by and large, it was, you know, something new that you did, in aside from your abilities, right? And because you're still getting an ability score at the regular advancement, you should not also then get it as part of a feat. I feel like
exactly. It feels a little OP at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's like one feat, like the resilient feat, that gives you a +1 or something like that
in that same stat.
But it's just that feat. You know what I mean? All the other feats are more specific to giving you features.
Yeah,
right?
there's no reason why.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while since I've actually read the rules on it. But in the rules for feats, doesn't it say that the DM can award feats to players regardless of an ASI?
Sure.
Yeah, when does that happen?
I mean,
it happened in the current campaign.
Yeah.
Twice, I think.
I gave Fox a feat.
Right.
And like that's more like home.
But that's the thing. That came with an ASI. You can, as a DM, you can hand out a feat that has an ASI with it.
Sure.
So
I think that's different though, because that was homebrewing as like a story reason why you get that. You know what I mean? I think just giving a player free reign to consistently bump up their ability scores, you know, at every other level, basically, they're going to outpace everybody else that doesn't take that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, but then you run into feats that have, you know, the ASI and weapons if they're weaker than other feats. Like, they're not nearly.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You would have to rework them to give them some additional power to them.
The reason why they're weaker, though, is because
you get
you don't get feats as often, right? Since you're getting more feats, that balances out the fact that it might not be good at this feat, but you're trying to do this very specific thing.
Okay, I can see that. I will concede that point. Except for maybe the resilience feat, because
I would say that's the only one that does.
Yeah. You know, I think we also need to look at possibly reintroducing prerequisites for feats. Inherently, like I feel like it's weird. Like, if you think about it realistically, a cleric who just picked up a crossbow can take the sharpshooter feat, and it's like, how does that work? You know what I mean? Story wise, like, I feel like they have to have a good enough dex or something to make it, you know, a certain prerequisite that makes it kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, hard to get into, right? Like, it's exclusive to somebody that has taken the time to build a character to that level, right? Or that ability. I don't know.
Sure, but like my only counterpoint is you're still only getting, 4 feats if you're at going to 20th level, which how often do you go to 20th level, right? And then on top of that, so more likely you're getting 2 feats, 3 if you're going human variant. How much does that really, like, if you have to invest a feat to get another feat, and you don't really want that prerequisite feat, right?
I'm not saying necessarily another feat. I'm saying, like I said, you have to have some sort of number quota in your dexterity or something of that nature. You know what I mean? Or you have to, like, only certain classes can take certain feats, or people that are only, that maybe like fighting styles for fighters and rangers can be a prerequisite somebody that you have to meet in order to get a certain feat that would improve that ability, right? I don't know.
I mean, some feats I believe do have.
There's one.
Only
and
one.
Then the rest are the rest are race feats.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like it's like I like having people being able to build the character they want to build, but I think in that instance you can maybe make it like something that they can eventually get to, right? And it shows the growth of that character. Like if they don't start with that ability score number or something like that, then they can get there eventually and then take that feat at a higher level. You know what I mean?
I get what you mean, but like, I feel like that might be a little out of the scope of this video, maybe.
Sure.
Because then we would have to go through every feat, and we don't have the time to go through every feat.
I know where because you're kind of pulling that from 3.5 again, where you had like feat trees and stuff like that, and a little bit of the new stuff where you actually have level requisites for certain feats. But I don't know. I don't really see it. It seems like it's a needless restriction on players' ability to create their ideal character. I mean,
Sure.
you gave us one example of sharpshooter, which is a -5, and at level 1, you're probably at a +5 to hit, so now you're at a +0. Sure, the starting monsters have a lower AC, but I mean, when you're that low and you're not hitting, you're not having fun either. So I don't know.
Especially like my character. When we first started, ran with sharpshooter at the start. I hit jack all whenever I tried to sharpshoot.
Sure.
Like especially correct me if I'm wrong, but goblins have what, a 15 AC?
Not positive offhand. No, I mean, like, yeah, it's just in general, it feels like, we're making feats more accessible because effectively you're not making the choice between ASI and feats anymore. Because generally you would only ever take 2 or 3 feats to go when you go up to 20 level, because you only have 5 ASIs. Right?
True.
So you'd probably get the same amount of feats anyway. It's just a matter of you're now getting more ASIs. So you being able to meet that dexterity requirement is nothing. Like you'd eventually get there pretty quickly. And by dexterity requirement, I'm saying like a dex of 13, right? Like that in itself. Now, granted, you could be like, well, if somebody doesn't have a dex of 13 at the very least, they're probably not going to take the sharpshooter feat, and that's possibly a poor example. But like other feats, it just seems like, I don't know, they're so powerful, but there's no limitation on them to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, but not all feats are really all that powerful. Like, there's ones that just give you proficiencies in armor and stuff, right? Like,
sure.
let's say you are a rogue that wants medium armor master, right? Well, you're going to need to take the feat that gives you medium armor proficiency in the first place, right?
Because you need to be proficient with medium armor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that, but it doesn't, like, I don't know. It just, and I don't think it needs to be a widespread thing, and I don't want to get into every single case.
Right.
I'm just thinking of, like, aside from splitting them and changing what levels they get applied to, is there anything else feats wise that we want to change? Obviously, I think we can all agree we want more of them in general.
Right. And maybe if there was a wider array of feats,
maybe some homebrewed feats. So we might make a video on that. So make sure you like and subscribe and sneak attack that notification bell for when you put up a video about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, I mean, if you get more feats in there, maybe you can start thinking about if feat trees is something people want to do, that's the time to think about is when there's more feats out there. But right now, each feat's pretty specific to itself.
And pretty self-contained as well. Yeah, like you don't have like
you combine
like the only examples I can think of are the armor proficiency to the the armor master. Like those are the only times I can see a tree of sorts, which isn't really a tree, but you get my point.
Yeah, I mean, there actually is one feat that comes to mind that could be split out, and that's the 2-weapon fighting feat.
Sure.
Like that +1 to AC and being able to. And being able to sheath and stow weapons at the same time, right? Those could potentially be 2 separate feats.
Sure.
They were. I mean, they were in, and also being able to use non-light weapons, dual wielding.
Yeah, I think they're from the course that I've heard of different things about where they're talking about possibly going with 5Es with the UA stuff. Not that we want to get into it that much, but just basic conversation. Is that they're trying to make the feats that you would possibly think to yourself as a character that it would be right for your class, that in the past haven't been necessarily, or haven't been beneficial or overly beneficial to someone that is already good at that, to make them better. They're retooling them to have those be the case. For instance, for the healer feat, they're keeping the D6 hit dice or D6 die for the healer's kit, when you use a healer's kit, but now they're also giving it so you get I think it's like a +1 or something like that you can re-roll any one you roll to do any kind of healing. So that would make it extremely beneficial for clerics, and such like that. So, but before the clerics wouldn't really get much benefit from the healer feat at all.
So they made it like the piercer feat, or the whichever feat gives you re-rolls on 2-handed weapons.
Yeah, it's making you better at being the healer.
Yeah, right? I like that. That seems a lot better. And that's the other thing. There's some OP feats out there right now, but there's also some like super underpowered feats as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like obviously the feats that are not as useful outside of not as useful outside of combat are not going to be ones that people are going to choose, right? Like the actor feat. I've barely ever seen someone take that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yep. And it would kind of only be beneficial in certain situations. Make those something that maybe like a bard would benefit more from, right? Like they can use a bardic inspiration die as part of their skill challenge or something like that for those, features. That I think that would be interesting to see what they do there.
Ooh, that would actually be interesting. Class requirement feats.
That would definitely add some way of distinguishing, one like fighter from the next or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, fighter's a poor example because you got like the different weapon style feats, kind of like polearm master and things like that. Yeah, like more feats like that.
Well, what's interesting
geared to a specific play style.
Yeah, what's interesting though is that in 3.5, the bonus feats that fighters got were specific feats. You couldn't take any feat that you wanted. It was ones that were labeled specifically as that. Right. So maybe that's something that you could say is like, okay, if you're taking a bonus ASI as a variant feat, right? Like you're taking a feat in place of that, maybe only certain feats can be taken in that.
Yeah.
That set. I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually a good point there. And the other thing I was thinking about, kind of going off of your idea of wanting like prerequisites. Like, let's say that you're a rogue that wants to take a feat that's labeled as like a fighter-specific feat.
Sure.
Let's say, but remember, from Tasha's, there is the fighting initiate feat, right? So if they take Fighting Initiate, that would then give them access to those fighter feats potentially.
Feat,
yeah. I mean, like it's essentially replacing the need to do a dip into some class for just like a level dip, right? To a smaller thing. Like, you could do a roguish initiate where you get 1d6 sneak attack damage, right, as part of that feat.
That would be that'd be kind of cool.
And things like that. I really want crafting feats for the love of God.
Yeah.
No, you know what I want as a roguish feat? I want some way of getting cunning action as a non-rogue. Because going from playing rogue to any other class, it's like I'm gonna dash as a bonus. Oh wait, I can't do that.
Well, you know what? It should be part of the mobile feat. You know what I mean?
Actually,
or variants to it.
Wait, isn't that a part of the mobile feat? I thought that was part of the mobile
10 feet additional movement.
You can use the dash action. Oh no, that's when you use the dash action, difficult terrain doesn't cost you extra movement. When you make a melee attack against a creature, you don't provoke attacks of opportunity. So it's actually more like Rakish Audacity from Swashbuckler.
Sure. Okay, so I guess you kind of.
Mobile feat could be a prerequisite feat to this, to this cunning action feat, right? This feat where you get cunning action,
or vice versa, or whatever.
Yeah, or vice versa.
Yeah. Well, maybe because mobile is one of those feats that it's so powerful, especially at lower levels. So maybe have
Yeah, maybe. I feel like it just would be interesting to see, what all they could get into. I feel like we get like maybe 1 or 2 new feats, every year or something like that, and
it's not many.
Yeah, it's very lackluster. I don't really care for the racial feats. I feel like they're not really anything to sneak, that I'm like looking for really.
Right.
Like I don't mind the idea of having racial feats, but I just feel like the ones out there are kind of meh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do like the idea of class specific feats. I think that would be interesting, and it would be really beneficial then to multi-class because you can take different types of feats. That would be interesting. Yeah, like homebrew feats, and we'll get into that, like we said, in another video possibly coming up here. But homebrewing feats, I feel like a lot of times I'm usually doing that for story purposes on my end, right? So it does fall into that kind of rule or just detailed part of the PHB where it says like, DMs can give them whatever they want. But I think you need to be extremely wary of doing that too often. I think maybe giving 1 per player, if that is beneficial. One of our other players in my game in this campaign that we're running, I gave him a feat at the very beginning because I wanted to persuade him to use a certain weapon, and the weapon in D&D is garbage, and so I wanted to give him like a feat that would make it not so bad, right? Or possibly whatever, and this would be the whip, for those that don't know, basically giving him the ability to grapple with it as well as do a D6 instead of a D4, which is not serious that much of a bump, but it's at least putting it on par with other martial weapons, and then like for Panda here, for Fox here, the feat that I gave you was more for in lieu of engaging with a certain character in my game and giving that feat the feel of that character or the benefits that would come from that type of a character. And I think that
which I used to a bit of which I did use quite often when I had it.
Yeah, and it wasn't just here you go, here's a feat. I also told you that it comes at a cost, which was that you had disadvantage on things that character tried to do to you. And so that was part of like an agreement. So I feel like that's really beneficial for warlocks or deities that you come in contact with. Like the warlock packs, those are really cool. but you should maybe consider making them have some sort of cost to them. Like, oh yeah, you get this, but you might have to take a disadvantage in this kind of thing or whatever.
Your eldritch sugar daddy decides to take control of your mind for a second or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sorry, I just thought of another really cool feat that I would really like to see maybe in an unarmored defense feat that you can take to go unarmored, depending on what you wanted to do, and maybe choose what ability score would make sense, either Constitution or Wisdom or Dex or whatever it is.
Right. Well, not Dex, but
yeah. But so there's a lot of options out there. I just want to see more. I think I would like more of a detailed description of homebrewing feats in the PHB going forward. But until then, you can come back to us and hear our silly thoughts on such things, and maybe we'll give you some hints there. But yeah, I think feats in general, it seems like they went under the assumption that nobody was going to use them.
Yeah, they felt like tacked on at the end.
Yeah, it just felt like they were like, well, it's a variant rule, so no one's going to need to use it, and then we don't need to worry about making new ones because, honestly, who's using them? But now they're finding out that everyone uses them. So hopefully we'll get some more here,
Well, I think that about does it. Unless you had something else you want to add.
No, I think we're good. Just so you know, we're going to put down kind of a level advancement tree of how we're kind of proposing this works down in the link in the description down below. So make sure to check that out if you decide that you want to go with this variant rule. And let us know your thoughts down in the comments, feats that you want to see come into 5th edition, thoughts you have on, the advancement tree that we have. Should you get feats more often? Is it not enough? Do you like it the way it is? Let us know, and, we'll take all that into account. So
that just about does it. So make sure you smite that like button, subscribe, and sneak attack that notification bell. But until then, join us next time when we slide into DemDMs. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Peace.